Good morning. My name is Jamie Irvin, and you are watching the Heavy Duty Parts Report. And today we are live. We thought today we would do a behind the scenes interview with our producer and marketing manager, Taron Hohensinn. We produce a lot of content at the Heavy Duty Parts Report, and one of the pieces of content that we put out almost religiously, it's every week, no matter what, is our weekly podcast interview, which goes live on Monday. So when I say live, I mean it's published, and people can start listening to the latest episode every Monday morning. We pre-record those, and there's a whole bunch of work that goes into making a podcast episode that a lot of people don't fully understand. And we thought it'd be kind of neat to be able to introduce you to the man who behind the scenes, who you guys never get to see, who's a big part of the success of this show, Taron, our producer and marketing manager, and just give him and I an opportunity to talk back and forth and explain to you what goes into producing an episode on the Heavy Duty Parts Report. So without further ado, let's bring in our producer, Taron Hohensinn. Taron, welcome to the live broadcast of this week's Heavy Duty Parts Report live stream.
Thanks, Jamie. I'm really looking forward to doing this with you.
Well, I know that typically you're the man behind the scenes, and you don't have to be on screen. You don't have to worry about any of that. So I appreciate you being here today. Just before we can, go in with our conversation or continue our conversation, I wanted to make sure people remember that if they would like to comment, please do comment, ask questions as we go about this episode. We'd love to hear from you. We've already had our first comment from Steve Hoke. Hey, Steve, he's given us a little bit of trouble for both being Canadian, eh? But Steve, glad to have you with us today, and I hope you enjoy the episode. So, Taron, let's start off with kind of why we do what we do. When we started the Heavy Duty Parts Report, the real thought behind it was I was a sales account manager working for a distributor. I brought out manufacturers. We would go into fleets and independent repair shops. We would talk to customers, and we'd have these great conversations. And I thought to myself, well, why not capture those kinds of conversations, record them, and publish them on a podcast? So that's kind of how the show got started. But that was June of 2019. And you started with us in January of 2020. So, Taron, really from your perspective, how has the show's why shifted from that early days in June 2019 when we first started to when you came on 6 months later?
Well, a lot changed in that point. Before, it was more of a general topic on the podcast, whereas when I started, we kind of began being more focused on manufacturers. That's the real change I really started to notice.
Yeah, and we in those early days, it was a struggle to just get people to come on the show. I had to put in a lot of work just to get a guest lined up, and we were interviewing manufacturers. But I think for me, one of the biggest changes was really in our focus on serving the industry. Very quickly we started to get feedback from listeners, from repair technicians, parts technicians, fleet maintenance managers. We started to get feedback from our guests of how the show was benefiting them as well. And so this really centered us and really helped us to focus on the audience, to focus on serving the industry, providing a platform for great companies and industry professionals to promote their products and what they do, but also giving a platform for people who are in the field, who buy and sell parts, who install heavy duty parts, to get access to better quality information. And I know I've shared with you some of the feedback we've gotten. It's quite rewarding, isn't it, to hear that we're making an impact in people's lives and in their careers.
Yeah, it is. It's pretty incredible to hear those things being said to us. I find it really encouraging.
Right. So people might wonder, what's your background? I've talked a lot about my background, the fact that I've been in heavy duty parts for a lot of years, that I started my own contracting business and sold it in 2016, got back into parts. People have heard that story. Are you a trained audio visual expert? Is that how you came to the heavy duty parts report, or what's your work background?
Absolutely not. Let's just start with that. So I started out building houses for a living. That's what I was doing, carpentry. And I really enjoyed it. I loved doing it. But then when the recession kind of hit here, work was a little bit tight. So I started my own business doing carpet cleaning and window cleaning. And it was really good. I did it for 2 years. And also I really enjoyed that. And it was a unique line of work that I've never done before, but still enjoyable. But then I remember you were talking about, this was probably in the winter time, how it was picking up a little bit and you needed a little bit of help. You were starting to travel a little more, going to shows, and taking care of the podcast was a little bit difficult when you're traveling that much. And so I was like, yeah, I'll help you for a couple hours every week. Not a big deal, because just an extra part of my work week. I didn't mind it one bit. And then,
well, it got you in out of the rain and the snow and the cold.
oh, trust me, I love that part. And it just started picking up from there.
Yeah. So what was it like coming from the trades background, and then basically with no experience, no knowledge? What was it like to tackle becoming an audio engineer and a video production or editor? Just before you answer that question, I just noticed a comment came in here. So we have a comment. Unfortunately, we can't see who the user is, but they say, Taron, the manufacturers on the show benefit from your efforts too. So that's some love from a past guest, obviously, who's appreciating all the work that you do.
Well, we appreciate your appreciation.
And Steve loves the hustle and the stash. Oh, you're getting a comment on the stash.
Thanks,
that's
Steve. It grows on me.
That's right. And the comments are coming fast and furious now. Trucking industry is Hotel California. No escape. This is true. This is true. I as people know, I left the industry in 2009, started a contracting business, and 6 years later I sold it and was back in heavy duty. So now you're in the industry. You're obviously been accepted by the industry, so you are stuck. So yeah, let's go back to just learning the audio side, learning the editing side. I thought it would be interesting if we walk people through the system that I had created, but that I taught you. So obviously it's really difficult to have a show if you don't if you don't have guests, right? It's hard to have an interview show without guests. And looks like that LinkedIn user who's commenting, for whatever reason it isn't displaying, is Scott Bolt. So we all know Scott. He's a friend of the show, been on many, many times. Thanks, Scott, for contributing to today. So yeah, it's really difficult to have an interview show without a guest. So when I was teaching you the system, I didn't really make that part of your job. That was something that I do. I do a lot of outreach. I'm reaching out to manufacturers, industry professionals. I'm inviting them to come on the show. Once we got a guest scheduled, though, the next thing is creating an outline, because if you just kind of turn on the mic and turn on the camera and hit record, and you don't have that planned out, it really makes a challenge for the interviewer. It's more stressful for the guest, but it also impacts editing. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, because if there's no structure, there's lots of rambling, there's lots of lost thoughts, and editing, it can be a real pain to piece it together if there's no structure at all. So that outline definitely helps keep everything nice and smooth, and I really appreciate that.
That's right. That's right. It also gives everyone a chance to kind of mentally prepare before we hit record. One thing that we try to avoid is as many ums, and then of course, if you're Canadian, editing those things out is a real pain, isn't it?
It can be. Some are worse than others. Let's just say that.
That's right. That's right. Okay, so we've had a guest agree to come on the show. We've created an outline. Everybody's happy with that. What kinds of things do we ask for from the guest? So one is a media release form so that we can actually publish the content. But there's a couple other elements we need from them, and I'd like you to cover what we do with them. So there's a headshot and a logo of the company. How do we use those two files?
Yeah, so a lot has changed in the last year of how we use those files. But as of right now, we definitely use the headshot. We use it for the image, the episode image itself, which is going to be displayed, and also the logo. We also use the logo in that instance. But also
So when
in
you
any
talk about
reroll.
sorry, Taron, when you talk about the
Oh, go
episode
ahead.
image, you're talking about that little thumbnail that goes along with the podcast episode. So if you go to
Yes.
heavydutypartsreport.com, go to the homepage, you'll see the last 4 episodes, and each one of them has an image beside the title. That's one place we use them, but then also on social media.
Yes, absolutely. And you'll notice how once in a while you won't see a headshot for the logo. That's just because we were unable to get one. But generally, we really like having the headshot just to kind of display who's talking, and it kind of just helps.
Yeah, it gives a little bit of personality, shows people who we're interviewing, highlights them, highlights their company, which is all part of the process. Okay, so when we're actually recording the episode, there's a couple of technical things that I wanted to share. So when we started, we used Zoom, but now we use StreamYard. One of the reasons we changed to StreamYard was because of the ability to put in banners, the ability to put in a heading, to put in tickers that roll across the bottom, like the one you're seeing on the screen right now. That's right. There we go. So it allowed us to customize a lot, even though we're not always live. So right now, using StreamYard Live, we have the added benefit of being able to bring in comments and interact live and publish this live. But with a podcast episode, we're still using the StreamYard software, but we're just doing record it only, and we're doing a lot of editing after the fact. Now, when it comes to capturing the audio, StreamYard does a pretty good job. But when you're capturing video and audio through the internet, everything is compressed. So I record things locally as well, not just through the video software we're using, but I actually record it with a program called Audacity. Why is that important?
Well, the importance of that is audio quality. It may not seem like much listening to it right now as we talk, but if we were making a podcast episode and you were only hearing audio, it can be a little bit obnoxious at times. Whereas if you have the Audacity file, you can really make it super crisp, super clear, and just sound so much better than if you're just using some stock internet file.
Right. So now that we are using more advanced video and audio editing software, we'll talk about that in a minute, but it does allow us to sync the audio. So yes, we have an audio file that is created by the recording that we're doing that you're watching right now, but because we're also recording it locally through the microphone directly here, it's not going through the internet. We have a better source file. You do a lot of editing to it. What do you do actually? Because I used to do all this editing, but it's changed a lot since the last time I edited an episode. So walk through some of the adjustments, because I know there's like noise reduction, compression. Talk about that for a minute.
Yeah. Well, that was ever since we started using our new editing tool. Because before we were using I forget what that program was called. Do you remember?
AVS video and audio editor. It was a cheap audio video editing software I bought for like $60.
That was it. And you know what? It served its role. It did good for many months, but we hit a wall where we could not increase the quality of content that we were producing. And well, we stepped up to using Adobe software, and Premiere is the one that I generally use now. But ever since we stepped into that, it opened up so many more options. And I haven't actually been able to use every single option yet because I haven't needed to. But what I have done so far is the first thing I do when I get audio files is first I layer them, having the main internet file that comes in from the episode, but also your locally recorded audio. So what I do is I sync those two audio files and cut I'm just going to call it unusable audio, the not so good audio. I cut that and replace it with your good audio every time you're talking, for the most part. If you talk more than one word, generally if you say one word, it's not really worth cutting because no one will notice. But if you talk for any period of time, I put that good audio in. Then what I do is I balance the audio. I make sure that the sound levels even throughout. So when people talk, generally there's...
Sorry, I'll just interrupt you on that. So when he's talking about balancing, one thing that we're always aiming for is that if you have your headphones on, you can listen very comfortably and hear everything at 20% of the volume of your device. And why that's so important is because we just want people, like with podcasting and audio, it has to be crystal clear. If it's not, people get frustrated and they stop listening.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So it's pretty important to do that. But not only that, is when people talk, their voice really fluctuates throughout, whether they're more excited or if they're a little bit farther away from the camera, the audio will kind of fluctuate like this. So what I have to do is I generally find the lowest peak where it dips down and I boost it. So throughout the audio, it's generally pretty flat. There might be tiny dips, but there's no big dramatic dips where you're kind of having a hard time hearing what they're saying. So that's usually the first thing I do.
So if it gets really quiet like this, then it's really hard to hear. And if it's really loud like this, then it blows you away. So when you're fixing that, you're actually balancing that out so that there's a natural ebb and flow of the volume and modulation of the person's voice. But it's all within that range of, what is it, about 6 decibels, minus 6 decibels? Like, I don't know the technical term, but...
Yeah, I usually strive for -6 because that's a pretty comfortable area. Sometimes it goes up to like -3 or like dips down to -8, -9. But generally, I strive for -5, -6. That's my goal usually when I start. But after that, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Okay. Well, after that, generally what I do is after I boost all the audio, any small static or anything also gets boosted.
Right,
So
like
any
background noise, or if there's clicks or smacks of the lip, like a real popping sound, like any of that kind of stuff that's in the background, you can just clean that right up.
Yeah, or just even an air conditioner or anything, road noise, everything gets boosted to a little bit of an obnoxious volume. So what I have to do now is I have to go in. Generally, if I throw in a noise reduction, denoise setting, it helps quite a bit with that. Sometimes it's a little bit of reverb I have to get rid of, but if I have to really do a good job and I can't get rid of it with those, I sometimes have to go into the actual wavelength and find the actual frequency that noise is coming from, and I have to pinpoint it and then drop that frequency right down. It's pretty complicated, but
there's all kinds of things that cause that. Like HVAC systems are notorious. It's brutal actually how much of the HVAC system the mics pick up. Now in my studio we've got a lot of sound deadening going on, but for the guest, it's just sometimes they're in an office, they're in a shop. It's just tough. HVAC, and then also the internet. When we're streaming all of this and we're recording through the internet, sometimes there's weird squeals and just background noise that we have to get rid of. So anyway, that's what we have to do with audio. It's a big job. When it comes to the post-production, though, there's also with the video. There's working on the guests' audio and video and making sure that it all syncs up. Over the course of the last couple of years, we've tested a lot of different things. So let's talk about 2 things. Let's talk about top roll, mid roll, and bottom roll commercials, and let's talk about putting in B-roll. So let's talk about the commercials first. We haven't always had commercials. Sometimes we've gone without. Other times we've had sponsors, or like right now we're running in Q1 of 2021, we're running a mid-roll that's promoting the services that we provide on the consulting side, and also the brand ambassadorship work that we do with Diesel Parts. So how do we set it up so that we can insert all of those things? We don't have to worry about the way it was in the past, but right now in 2021, how are we doing top roll? How are we doing mid roll commercials? How does that all work?
Well, it's super simple now. We've streamlined it a lot. So all I do is I have my finished audio file and I drop the intro in, and in the middle you add usually a little commercial break. Like you have a little pause where you pause for, I don't know, 3 seconds. So that gives me a nice little spot where I can cut the audio and video and space it up a little bit, and then drop the mid roll in, and then I drop the end roll. So it's pretty simple now.
Yeah, it's great. It's so quick to be able to do that. So when we're actually recording behind the scenes, this is what it sounds like. I'll basically say, and now we're going to take a quick break. We're back. And that's all that's needed to be able to give you that space to drop in that mid-roll commercial. Now, there's also something new with our podcast only. So this doesn't show up on the YouTube videos, but on the podcast only, we now have dynamic ad insertion through our podcast host. So this means that we can actually run relevant ads across every episode we've ever published automatically, so that as long as, let's say between March 1st and March 25th, we're advertising the Turbo Solutions webinar that's coming up. Now, it doesn't matter what episode a person is listening to, they can listen to that ad at the very beginning. And then as soon as that webinar is published, we take that dynamic ad down and it strips it out. And that happens all automatically. So that's pretty cool. Before we move on, we had a question come in, and the question is, what was Taron's most challenging project so far? Let's not name names, but I have to think it was one where we had some audio quality issues, but we also had multiple guests.
Yeah, I was going to say no comment to that, but probably, yeah, generally the more guests you have, it does make it a little more difficult, way more lengths to deal with, way more different layers, but really, just bad audio quality can make it much more difficult because it takes way more time to try to make it sound usable. That's really the biggest challenge.
Yeah. And the other thing, too, is that I know, because I remember this particular episode, and we both know which one we're talking about. One of the guests was very comfortable and the other one was very uncomfortable. And so unfortunately, because they were so nervous and so uncomfortable in front of the camera, we ended up having to cut a lot of their contribution to the conversation, because there was so many pauses and starts and stops. And we were disappointed about that, and so was the guest. But at the same time, we were still able to make a great episode because we just took the best segments and we put it all together. I think the record time was like 25, 30 minutes, and we only ended up publishing an episode that was well under the 20-minute mark. Isn't that right?
I think it came to close to 15 minutes. But yeah, before I started editing, it was just over 30 minutes. So I cut it in half. But what we did have, we were able to use it, and it turned out really good, I think.
Yeah, overall, I think you did a really great job of making that usable. And that's why, some guests come on, they're very comfortable live. Other guests, they don't want to be live, and they want to just be on the podcast. And that pre-recording it and editing it, it gives us a lot of flexibility. So people oftentimes are a lot less nervous, but it was still a challenge. Okay, so the episode is now live, and we do a lot of promotion. So I don't think we need to spend a lot of time on that. The episodes are published on heavydutypartsreport.com, both as a podcast and then also as an embedded video in the show notes. You can find the entire episode on YouTube. We also post to LinkedIn, to Facebook, to different forums. And then we do an email campaign to all of the people who are subscribed, which is a very sizable number now. So we're pretty happy. Really, the overall effort that we've put forward in the last couple of years, we've gone from just having a couple hundred people listening and impressions every month, to now we're averaging about 25,000 impressions a month across our entire platform. And really only a few months ago, I think it was October, we were at 10,000. So we've had some exponential growth in the last few months. And that's really rewarding for us, because we do put a lot of effort into this. It's kind of our heart and soul behind every episode. I know you care deeply about the quality, and we're also trying to serve the industry. So it's been pretty exciting, though, to see those numbers just climb.
Oh yeah, it's been amazing to see that, and just the amount of the quality of content we're able to produce now is much higher, and just all of that adds to a greater thing.
So before we move on to more about the tech, I wanted to ask you this one question. You just said that the quality has gone way up on our production. Is this it? Have we plateaued, or do we have some big plans for the future?
Oh no, we're not done. We're not done. I'm still learning. I'm still taking more courses, and hopefully, well, not hopefully, I know we'll see better quality coming soon.
Yeah. The other thing too is because we're doing content marketing, we're doing strategy on the consulting side. We're also doing content marketing for other companies. We've hired consultants that are professionals. We've brought in professional videographers. We have editors that are helping us to So it's Taron and I are the foundation of this team. But for anybody who would like to work with us, we have some really, really professional people backing us up and supporting us, and that's really helping us to rapidly expand our capacity for production of content. So if you are watching this and your company is looking for a bit of help, you want us to help with video production, you want us to help you produce a podcast, you'd like us to help on the blog articles, the social media content, the strategy, or the actual implementation of those, and the development and production of those digital assets, please, by all means, reach out to us, heavydutypartsreport.com. I wanted to give people an idea of some of the tech that we're using. So we've already mentioned Audacity. That's an open source software that we use to record audio locally. You mentioned Adobe Premiere, that Adobe Creative Suite with Photoshop and the video editing on Premiere, After Effects. It's a really powerful package. And we're really happy to have transitioned over the last few months over. But what a learning curve. It's just unbelievable.
Oh yeah, what a learning curve. In fact, like before, you can't see it, but I have like 12 buttons on this mouse, and well, they're all linked to doing something now because it took a little bit of learning, but I'm getting there.
Right. So what you're talking about is you've actually programmed your mouse so that every button on that 12 buttons on that mouse are all short keys to just cut things, select things, edit, all part of the editing process. So it's really great. A couple other things, just so people know, I'd give a shout out to Buzzsprout. They've supported us on the podcast side. They are our host for podcasting, and they are fantastic. So I wouldn't suggest going with anybody else. Buzzsprout has been amazing. If you're starting a podcast, you've got to host it with Buzzsprout. And I want to talk about, we've got Photoshop and we're starting down that road. But up until we got the Adobe Suite, we were using something called Canva, and we still use it every day. Talk a little bit about Canva.
Yeah, Canva. I still like Canva because it's just a little simpler to use than Photoshop. And by little, I mean a lot simpler to use than Photoshop. Photoshop takes a lot of technical skill. But Canva, you can do, for the most part, anything you need to with images, with little kind of video clips. You can add titles, you can cut and paste sections, you can hide backgrounds. You can do quite a lot with Canva, and I'm actually really impressed with it.
Yeah, and I mean for the cost of it, it's like, I don't know, $12 a month or something like that. It's ridiculous. It's just unbelievable the quality of content you can create with that little program for such a cheap price. So we're really happy to continue. I think we're going to continue using Canva, even though we're also going to be doing the more complex graphic design work with Photoshop.
Oh yeah, definitely, because it's so much easier to just do some of the more simpler things. It takes a lot less time to do them, and it's just an easy source because you can keep all your images there, all these templates, and it's a good thing to use.
Yeah, that's right. So, how do we support the show financially? Well, we've already talked a little bit about it. At the beginning, we did entertain and actually brought on some paid sponsors. But after a short period of time, I felt that wasn't the right way to go. I really wanted to be able to make this show focused on the audience. And the only time we were really going to do the advertising was just to let people know about things like our exclusive webinars coming up. That's how we use that dynamic ad. Also, we let people know that we offer consulting and content marketing services in that mid-roll. We try to keep it super, super short. So that's really how the whole show is financed. It's all from the work that we do with our clients, whether it's the consulting work that I'm doing with them directly, or it's the content marketing services that we're now offering that you're involved in, Taron. And we're just wrapping up some video projects for some customers. We've got a couple new clients who've come on that we're going to start managing their social media and helping them with their overall content strategy and the implementation. So it's been exciting times, very dynamic, and that's how we finance the show, and we're really hoping that will be the way that we do it, for many years to come.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying doing all these video projects for clients. That's something I find really enjoyable.
Yeah, that's kind of our favorite bit of work to do, isn't it? Well, Taron, thanks so much for coming on an edition of the Heavy Duty Parts Report, one of our live streams. I appreciate it. I hope people enjoyed the behind the scenes of how we put together an episode. There's a lot more to it than most people realize, and you've done fantastic work. I'm so happy to have you as part of the team, and it was also nice to have a little bit of appreciation from our audience today for the efforts that you put in, despite it often not being on camera and totally behind the scenes.
Oh, I'm really glad we're able to do this. I'm happy it's a live video because I don't have to edit it. So that's always a great thing. I don't have to edit my audio.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So we'll be now this is all published live already. We'll post a replay in a couple hours on the Heavy Duty Parts Report so that people can find it later. Thanks so much, Taron. We'll talk to you later.
Yeah.
All right. So this brings to a conclusion this week's live stream. I just wanted to thank you for participating. Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Scott. So happy to have you guys with us. And of course, everyone else who's watching. Next week, we are going to have Scott Bolts on the show, and we're going to be talking about how to effectively use marketing to sell more heavy duty parts. We think that there's a real opportunity for us to serve the audience and the industry with next week's episode, because it is a dynamic landscape for companies to figure out what to do and how to effectively use digital marketing to go along with their traditional sales efforts. So hopefully you will take a lot of value from next week's episode. So we will be back next Friday, 10 a.m. Mountain, 12 Eastern. Make sure that you tune in on Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube. Thank you so much for being with us this week, and have a great weekend. We'll talk to you next week.